Oh, thank you. That's a very kind intro. I think I joked with Cindy. This is a picture of our family. I joked with her last time I saw her that there's times that I tell people I am in early childhood education, and there's times I don't. The times that I don't is when I'm on the airplane feeding, you know, gummy bears to my kids so that they'll stop screaming. But then there are times where they act really nice. I'm like, oh yes, I am in early childhood. So, but no, we love our having our business and having our kids together. Both my husband and I, it really gives us that perspective. This business actually started out as a parenting education business, and then we transitioned into professional development. My husband, Justin, he's the CEO and founder of Bertelsen Education, and then I'm the COO and founder of Bertelsen Education. And I'm just getting over a cold, so sorry if I sound a little scratchy, but I'm hoping that with enough water, we'll be able to get through this whole thing. So to jump in, I wanted to share a story from my childhood. So I'm the little blonde girl here with an eye patch. When I was around 5 years old, about to enter into kindergarten, my parents went and got my vision tested, and we realized that I was blind out of my left eye. I had what's called amblyopia or lazy eye. And at the time, the best thing to do was to wear an eye patch. So I put an eye patch over my good eye to turn on my bad eye, if you will. And as you can imagine, 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, so I wore an eye patch for 3 years, we're not ready for such a fashion statement, as I wanted to be a pirate, was a pirate. I was made fun of a lot as a kid. I remember one particular day, there was a little boy on the bus who would sneak up behind me and rip my eye patch off. And this happened over and over again, but one day I decided that I had had enough. And I was sitting with my brother, who's 5 years older than me, and his name is Coy. And I was getting home from school, and I told Coy that I was gonna drop out of school, that I was done, kindergarten, that's as far as I'm gonna get, because I didn't want to be around those kids anymore. And he said, you just got to stick it through one more day and then make your decision, And I giggle because I just imagine this 5-year-old talking to this 10, 11-year-old about how she's going to quit on school and stuff. But he says, give it one more day. So the next day I get up begrudgingly, I get dressed and put my eye patch on, and I come out into the kitchen, and I'm the 6th out of 8 kids. So there's a lot of kids in my family. And as I come into the kitchen, all of my older siblings are wearing eye patches. And I just remember feeling like I had an army of siblings that were going to take care of me. And my siblings all the way from, high school, middle school, and elementary school, we all rode 3 different buses, but they walked me to the end of the driveway, and I got on my bus. And I'm sure that as soon as I got on my bus, they took off their eye patches before they went to school. But I just remember feeling so empowered as a little girl to know that my family was going to support me through anything. And so as I go into this presentation, I wanted to point out that, family has always been a core belief of mine. But I also recognize that there are so many different kinds of families. When I'm talking today, I may use the word mother, but I mean like a female role model, or I may use the word father. And I know that some people don't have fathers. That's a male role model. Some people have 2 fathers. Some people have 2 mothers. There's so many different families now. So as we go into this, I kind of want to focus on what research shows about families and how we can set up strong family relationships or promote strong family relationships in what we do in our centers, as directors, as teachers, but then also as parents, how we can pull and be that community together. So we'll start off, let me move these little Zoom. And Mariah, will you just stop me if there's something on the chat that I need to, like if there's a question?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I was like, because I'll probably have that up. So I have to move these the Zoom faces off my screen. So one second. Okay. So this is from Dr. Tim Rarick in his book, Family Capital. He says, if one does not have a good grasp on economics and social science, one might assume that poverty is driving the breakdown of the family rather than the other way around. He was actually one of my professors in my undergrad, and he had so much research that he had done with the United Nations showing that when a nation or a community or a society is struggling economically, socially, that it's very highly correlated with families and the strength of the families. And so as we strengthen families, I do believe that we'll be able to strengthen societies around us. So we're going to do, this is called Slido. Basically, I want people to be able to vote on their phone. So pull out your phone, or you can open up another browser and just the instructions are right here. First, go to slido.com, sorry, and then enter in this code, and we'll actually be able to talk about this question live together. So I'm going to pull it up here, and it'll have, it's right down here at the bottom. So go to slido.com and then enter in this code, and then you'll be able to type in the answer to this question. What are the biggest struggles that you face with your families? And go ahead and put in the chat if you're having a struggle getting that up, or and we'll use this 2 or 3 times throughout the presentation. So this first time it'll take a second, but okay, it looks like we've got a few people starting on it. What are the biggest struggles you face with your families? And these are like the families that you work with. And I'll go ahead and read these as they come in. So developing strong relationship with closed off families. Yeah, that's definitely a struggle. Continual communication and feedback for support. Having time to talk before, after, or during program hours. Yeah, that's huge. It's hard to set up those touch points when you have kids coming in and out. Education and curriculum. And it looks like there's one more. Give them. And meeting all individual needs. Yeah. And you, language, this one more person said, language, message, no time to talk together. Yeah. So we'll touch on some of those. I'm going to go back to the presentation, but keep Slido up because we'll do that in a second again. Some of the most common struggles that I hear from people is that communication or time to communicate with parents. You know, I feel like we got into, my daughter was 4 months old when COVID first hit. And so I got used to like drop off daycare, you know, where you like drop your kid off at school on the curb and the teachers would come and get them. And then at the end of the day, they would come and bring my kids out to me. And in an early childhood center, that's hard because I didn't really get to talk to the teachers. But even now, post-pandemic, I now go in and I drop my child off, or I go and talk to the teacher, and I feel like it's now foreign for teachers and parents to talk to each other. Like there's new teachers, there's been so much turnover that they're not used to talking to parents. And then us new parents are coming in and we don't know what kind of questions to ask or what things to be involved in. And that it creates that communication gap that I'm hoping we're going to talk about some different strategies of how to overcome. So thanks for your participation on that. Sorry. There's so many different, the family really does affect the economy that we live in. You know, it affects future relationships. It has community benefits, you know, where we talk to children about our heritage and they pass down more heritage, you know, that has that in the family. Being a part of a family teaches us to be a part of something bigger. And I also think in families is where it's a safe zone for children. When children feel safe in their home, they have better mental health and they're able to explore more and be able to help other people. And also children who have a strong or a safe family environment have different health benefits. They're, you know, going to doctor's appointments, they're getting those checkups, and they're able to be better healthy. So really, strengthening families does affect each one of these bullet points in raising a stronger generation in the communities that we're involved in. Confucius said, the strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home. So again, just backing up that principle. And then I have no idea how to say this person's name, Yuri Bronfenbrenner from Cornell said, the family is the most powerful, the most human, and by far the most economical system known for building competence and character. That really the strength derives from the home. So now that I've beat that dead horse, we're going to go into the importance of mothers, the importance of fathers, and again, female role models, creating male role models, and then we'll talk about how we can strengthen those relationships in the family with fathers, with mothers, in our own centers or in the circles of influences that we have. So again, let's go to Slido. Describe your mom in one word. So you'd use the same code, but this time this second question should come up, and then it'll actually create like a little word cloud for us. So, you know, a little cute and stuff. So describe your own mom or a female role model of yours in one word. Good. Love that. Quiet, caring, supportive. And if you see a word up there, that's how you describe yours, feel free to say the same word. Perfect. So we have good, caring, supportive, quiet, committed, caring, lovely, always happy, and very radical. That's more than one word. I'm just kidding. It's hard to do it in one word. And those are all great attributes of women, of mothers. So thanks for that. Let's go back into this in just a second. I think, well, coming into this next slide, I think is where we talk about, in this study, A Mother's Role in Early Childhood Development, that shows that mothers are pivotal in children's learning during the first 5 years of life, but specifically in their first 3 years of life. Typically, mothers are their primary teachers and examples of how to socially interact, how to take care of our physical bodies, you know, how to dress, how to brush our teeth, how to do our hair. You know, I'm still working with my 4-year-old about how, yes, flowers on your shirt and flowers on your pants are both flowers, but those don't necessarily match. You know, you learn these social interactions from mothers. Cognitive skills are developed with mothers. They learn how to be independent. And this study really showed that, especially during the first 0 to 3, that having a strong mom, and when I say strong mom, I mean emotionally involved, mentally okay. You know, 1 in 4 mothers have postpartum depression, and getting finding those resources, being able to see parents that come into your centers and give them resources to help themselves be mentally strong so that they can then help their children in turn. So I'm hoping that people will turn off their mics and talk at this time. If you're not able to turn off your mic, we can go ahead and do the chat. You're just going to keep hearing my voice, which is raspy. So I'd love for other people to unmute their mic. But I'd love to kind of talk together about what kinds of things you're already doing in your centers to support mothers, and what kind of things you maybe have heard of that you would like to do to support mothers. So I'll go ahead and open it up for you guys, and just feel free to unmute your mic. And I'll again say the question. So what kind of things are you already doing in your centers to support mothers? And what things would you like to be doing to support mothers? Angela said advocating and supporting breastfeeding. Yeah. I think mothers get these, my husband and I think that there's this big gap between, like, when you're pregnant, you're seeing the doctor like almost every 2 weeks when you get to the end. And then suddenly you don't see the doctor until 12 weeks. And then you don't see the doctor until a year later. There's so much happens for mothers with their bodies changing, with breastfeeding, with postpartum depression, with all these different life things that happen during 0 to 12 months old for an infant that a mom is really learning and adjusting to. And so having that support and having those resources there for moms is huge. Another in-home visiting programs. We always do the Edinburgh postpartum questionnaire. Oh, that's great. Regina said, we have a new mom support group, meets once a month, non-pressured and fun. That's great. Supporting mothers that decide to breastfeed and maybe feeling guilty. Be there for little ones, supporting healthy food, healthy habits, Christian support. That's great. Thanks for typing into the chat there. So, I do think that there are things that we can do to strengthen moms, and it may feel like, oh, we're needing to put extra time, or I don't have the time to do this, but supporting parents is one of the best ways to strengthen your childcare center, because you're able to really help them feel empowered and strengthen your children. Oh, and Angela just clarified, I meant for parents who decide not to breastfeed. 100% agree. I think that my mom, when I was talking to her, this is with my first son, I asked her, should I do breastfeeding or should I not do breastfeeding? When I was talking to her and I was pregnant, she says, if your baby's fed, that's great. And that's kind of stuck with me, with my first 2, I wasn't able to breastfeed, and my third, I was able to breastfeed. It kind of just making parents feel like they're doing good with whatever decisions that they're making. Because if they've made a conscious decision to do something, that's great. And supporting them in that. Okay, so let's keep going with mothers here. I'm going to move the chat off my screen. So if you have anything, make sure you raise your hand so that I can see that. Early childhood programs alone probably cannot fully meet the needs of young children as they progress through school. I think teachers and directors are like 100% we need the parents, but I think the parents sometimes think that, okay, if I'm sending my child to an early childhood education center, then they're going to be fine. I've heard parents say like, oh yeah, my child potty trains my kid at school. And I'm like, really, how do they do that without you? Like there really needs to be the parents and the teachers working together to create that consistency of care. So now let's transition into fathers. It's very easy for a man to father a child. To father a child, unlike to mother a child, typically refers to a biological act. And men today do not seem to have much of a problem in that regard. But it is difficult for a man to be a father. To be a father, rather than to merely to father, means to give child guidance, instruction, encouragement, care, and love. Fatherhood, the state of being a father, is declining to a remarkable degree because so many fathers no longer live with their biological children. I think in this next slide, I do say it, so I don't want to repeat myself, but 24 million children in America, so that's 1 out of 3 children, live in father-absent homes. So they don't have that male role model in their home. And 1 in every 6 custodial parents, so like when there's a divorce, only 1 out of 6 children go to the father, 5 out of 6 times it goes to the mother. And I'm not saying that's wrong or right in those decisions, mainly with those facts. I'm showing that there are so many children that don't have a father or a male role model that lives with them, that's there with them. And so I'm going to go into kind of some different stats of how that affects children so that we can hopefully set up those relationships, or not set up those relationships, that's not our job, but to strengthen those relationships, encourage those relationships, and set them up for success. So children without fathers are 4 times greater risk of poverty, 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen, 2 times more likely to suffer obesity, and 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. And these are all from the the National Fatherhood Initiative. Males have been found to have a greater impact on females, so like dads with daughters, when they do have the father around, they have a greater impact on their daughters in the following areas. So they help children with independence and self-reliance, to take responsibility, to try new difficult things. I see that with my own husband. When my daughter's like having a hard time, let's just say zipping up her coat, I'm like, oh, come here, I'll just zip it up. And he's the one that's like, no, you're old enough, you can zip up your coat. And then I'll just sit there like really impatiently for what feels like forever, but probably is only like 15 seconds. But he wants her to try it for herself, to encourage and to try again. I think sometimes, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, I know that these roles are different for different people, but like if my son, like he fell down and hurt his knee, my first reaction is to hold him and to be like, oh, it's okay, and to snuggle him. And Justin's first reaction is to say, okay, stand up and do it again. And so like that's something that he's really good at. And then also increased language development. Often I find myself, and I've seen other mothers, they understand their toddler because they have this like speak, where they say dino nuggies instead of chicken nuggets, or nana instead of banana. But when they talk to their dad, they have to actually say the word out loud. And that increases language development to have both of those kinds of roles in the home. Sorry. Professor Linda Nielsen said, true, most fathers and mothers relate differently to their kids, but why would we want them to be identical? That's one of the benefits of being raised by a mom and a dad. They don't always do things the same way, but this doesn't mean that one parent is inferior to the other. We're being sexist when we assume that dad's way of parenting is inferior to mom's because he's a man. I love the show Bluey on Disney because I feel like it's one of the first little kids shows that I've seen where the dad is a great dad. And does he do some silly things and maybe mess up. Yeah, but so does the mom. And I think that in society today, we've made the dad like a bumbling idiot in the home. And it doesn't, or will like, I think with good intentions, we want to strengthen moms. And so we'll talk about how good of a mom she is or what she did there. And we disregard the father. Where we used to live in Kansas City, we'd drop our daughter off at preschool. And I would notice that when I went in, they would talk to me about what she's doing, what she's struggling with. But when my husband took her in, they wouldn't say anything. And even when he would like ask a question, they would answer it quickly. And then they'd like, if we both went in together, they'd turn to me and talk. And I think just naturally, there's more women teachers in childcare centers and in early learning centers. Well, we need to get out of the habit of talking women to women and really empower fathers by asking them questions and getting them involved, and bringing up the struggles, not just what went well that day, but what did they struggle with, and maybe some ideas of how we can work together to overcome that struggle. Okay, so let's go and do Slido. So I remember that this is totally anonymous. No one will know it's you. So I want you to type in, what kind of biases have you had or have you seen that people hold when they're working with fathers? And go ahead and type that into Slido and not the chat. And I'll go ahead and give like 30 more seconds for people to get in. And again, it has the instructions on the bottom. If you've exited out, you can vote on slido.com and it has the code there. Okay, so when we're talking about biases, and I'm going to just start reading them, but feel free to go ahead and enter in while I'm reading them. So what kind of biases do we hold when working with fathers? One person said we see mothers as more nurturing, so we tend to give that information to the mom. Lots of times dads seem to always say, okay, tell mom. Yep, that definitely happens. They're not interested in development, growth, or milestones for their children. Perhaps they're more standoffish in sharing updates on their children. They come across as they don't care as much, that they're not as interested in their child's day. I appreciate you guys being so vulnerable and saying these. I think sometimes we're like, oh no, we don't hold biases, but we really do. Diapering, not knowing how to change their kid. You know, I think that thanks for your thoughts. I'm going to come back into the presentation now. I think that there's been so much how to say this? There's been so much good media and push to strengthen women in the workplace, women at home, women who want to work and be at home. And I think that supporting fathers is behind that, and it can be further than that. And a lot of times that has to come from just like our daily interactions. When we say, oh, your child had an accident, and they said, oh, well, make sure you call their mom and tell them, and say, well, actually, I'm telling you as the father, here's some ideas of how we could help that. What would you like to do? And like directing things to them, but then also like educating and uplifting them. You know, they may seem like they're not as interested in milestones because they don't know the milestones. They don't know what's normal. I didn't when I was first a mom, but I felt like I should, and so I learned them. And a lot of times fathers don't have that education or push to learn them. So I appreciate you guys talking about that. So we kind of talked about relationships with daughters, and now we'll go into relationships with sons. Again, from the National Fatherhood Initiative, fathers really are the role models to show to their sons how to respect women, how to have family responsibilities and to work in those family responsibilities, how they view themselves in their masculinity, how to not abuse drugs or alcohol, and how to act academically and professionally, and what success looks like in an academic and professional setting. Okay, so this study blew my mind when there was a bunch of them, but I kind of just highlighted a few here. These are, so nearly 1,000 fathers were surveyed on dads' attitudes on fathering. So keep in mind that this is 1,000 fathers describing themselves as fathers. So 91% of the fathers believed that there was a father absence crisis. 81% believed men perform best as fathers if they're married. 67% wanted government help and support as a father. 64% were inspired to be a better dad when they saw positive media. And 33% felt that they weren't important in their child's life. That last one makes me so sad. 1/3 of fathers feel like they're not important in their child's life or not essential in a child's life. And I think that there needs to be that social shift in showing that fathers are just as important as mothers, or having those interactions with their dad, interactions with positive role models, male role models especially, can really help children with this. And again, I'm going to just say this again, that most children live with their mom, not with their dad, when they're in a single parent household. And so setting up opportunities for children to create good male role models instead of just what they see in superhero movies can really help them change that social shift for their future generations as well. So let's go ahead and do this in the chat. So what kind of things can we do for families without fathers to introduce healthy relationships with male figures? So again, noting that we know that there's not a lot of or when there's single parent homes, most of the time they're with their mom. So what are some things that we could do to set up healthy relationships with male role models in the community? So go ahead and take a second and type those into the chat. All right, so Dana said, and I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, have male volunteers in our program for morning arrival and dismissal. Great. Create opportunities for them to interact and engage with other male figures. Have males available from organizations. Yeah, that's great. Alicia said, read more books about dads and add dad in conversations about what happens at home. Yeah. We want to make the dad just as strong as, or the male role model just as strong as the female role model in the home when we're talking to kids. I try to really speak to dads about child just as I would the moms. More activities for fathers. Great, thanks. Okay, so now let's transition. Oh, one more was have child slash uncle nights. So like male nights. So that's fun. Okay, so transitioning now, kind of wrapping up in the next 5 minutes is how can we work together with parents to make that strong foundation? So this is from a Pew Research study in 2021, found that 59% of millennial parents get their parenting advice online, and 92% of parents feel that parenting is central to their identity. So basically what that means is that parents are turning to their phone when they want information instead of their parents, or instead of books, or instead of people of authority figures. And 92% of parents feel that parenting is central to their identity. So when they make a mistake, like they yell at their child, they don't feel like they made a mistake. They feel like they're a bad person. They connect their parenting success to themselves as a person. And so coming into that, I actually was the perfect parent. I studied marriage and family, and I knew everything that there was until I had a child of my own. And then I realized that parenting is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. It's something that we learn as we go along. But, there's this particular wake up moment that I remember. Ross, who I'm holding in this picture, my oldest, he was about 6 months old, and I was sitting on my living room floor, just staring at the carpet. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with me? Where's this motherly intuition that I thought I should have as a parent? Fast forward a few months, I realized that I had postpartum depression, that I got help with postpartum depression. And that's actually when we started our business. It started out as a parenting education business, as I started teaching classes about sleep and about potty training and nutrition and how to work together as parents. I started teaching those classes in the community that I was in. And then we started teaching them online. And then we started doing professional development for early childhood education. And when a child care center buys our training, we add the parenting stuff, because I do feel like that you teach teachers and you teach parents, and they have to both be learning the same things together to create that consistency of care. A lot of times parents have these unrealistic expectations, and then they feel like they failed, but giving them realistic expectations. It's totally normal for your child to wake up and eat during the night for like 9 months. It's totally normal. A year, some babies are still waking up once to feed during the night, and that's normal. And so creating support groups for parents, or letting parents know what are normal developmental milestones, can really help set them up for success. One way that we can do this is having quarterly or every half year, or at least every year, parent teacher conferences, where we not only talk about what their child is doing well, what they're struggling with, but then like what milestones or what's normal to come up. I think parent teacher conferences in a K through 12 setting are a little bit different than a parent teacher conference for a 3-month-old. The 3-month-old, well, they're doing great. There isn't really like much to report on, but there is so much that you can teach a parent and help the parent feel like they have resources for during a parent teacher conference, that you can set up those expectations and that routine, even that early in early childhood center, whether that's a director or a teacher or an assistant teacher, but just setting up a 10-minute check-in with your parents that they come in together and talk about can be one of the most important things that you do. Primary caregiving supports healthy development because predictability and familiarity makes the child feel safe. So being able to have the child feel safe through creating predictable outcomes by having the same thing at home and the same thing at the school can really build that consistency of care and build children. And then the last quote that I have here is, when parents have warm, trusting, and reliable relationships with peers, family, community members, and with childcare providers, they are more likely to have positive relationships with their children. When parents feel that support, they're able to carry that over into talking with their children. Just in conclusion, when I talk to parents and I asked them, where do you get your information on potty training, or where do you get your information on safe sleep? They turn to their childcare provider. They think that the 18-year-old that you have in your 2-year-old room is the authority on that. They think that you as the director know everything about child development. They really view you as the authority. And so taking that time to one, become authoritative, learn the information so that you're able to distribute that to families, but then also to give resources to parents and help them realize that you guys are to work together, and to really build that consistency of care can strengthen children. You can help build parents' confidences in themselves and in how they parent. You can give them the tools to take care of their children better. And I really believe that together we can create a better village for our children. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jill. We appreciate you so much for presenting today and for being a true trooper. I see that you definitely are not feeling that great, but we appreciate you persevering to get this information out to everyone. And we appreciate all of you who have joined in today for participating and for sharing your insight, and for you all being so vulnerable, and Jill as well. Thank you so much for bringing that very needed perspective. Gonna go ahead and open the floor if anyone has any questions, either about anything that Jill spoke on today, or anything about Bertelsen education. We have a few minutes if you want to just go ahead and raise your hand, or you can go ahead and use the chat. We'll just leave it open for a few moments. Thank you so much.
I will plug in here that, if you are looking for parenting courses or parenting resources to give to your parents, that, please check out our website. We have both parenting courses and professional development courses that we would love for you to share with your teachers and with your parents.
Thank you so much.
So can you all hear me?
Yes.
This is Cindy. So does anybody out there have, like a tough situation maybe that you've had recently, with a parent, or one that you're trying to resolve between a teacher and a parent that you'd like to ask Jill about? I know one that I have seen fairly recently, but it actually has been going on for a while. And it is the issue, Jill, that you mentioned about safe sleep. Centers are still struggling with parents that want their babies swaddled, want their babies on their bellies, want their babies pacifier attached, all the things that we cannot do that put children at risk. What's as a young parent, how would you want that to be brought to your attention? Because my experience has been one of two things. Well, we're not going to tell them, we're just going to not do it, or we're going to go ahead and do it because that's what the parent wants us to do. Oh God, no.
Yeah.
I bet there's people out there that have had this.
Yeah. And I'm going to add a similar milestone that I also hear a lot is potty training. So you do something at home and you do something at the center and then at home they do something completely different, or they want you to do something completely different. But well, I think one of the best things, and this doesn't, I'll give you two answers here. One of the best things you can do is to give them the safe sleep policy before they even enter into the classroom. So like as they enter into the 0 to 12-month classroom, you'd have the parent read over the safe sleep, have a parent-teacher conference on it for 5 minutes where you actually read them out loud to them and have them sign a document and show them maybe a few stats on safe sleep and why in your center you're going to do this, and encourage them to do it at home, but this is what we're going to do at the center. Because I think if you set up that communication beforehand, then it's not so awkward when they bring their child in a car seat swaddled and tell you to just leave the child in the car seat. You're like, well, I can't do that. Like it's a lot less awkward if they know that beforehand. But there's still going to be parents who want you to put them on their tummy when they're not supposed to, or put them, and I think just, again, bringing up the safe sleep policy with them and saying, like, at the center, this is what we're going to do, because it's safe. But I think you need to communicate that with parents. If they say, oh, they sleep better on their tummy, they're old enough to sleep on their tummy, then I'd have them go get a doctor's note saying that they're okay to sleep on their tummy. Like, get another kind of form of authority figure in there to help them realize that there's safe sleep policy for a reason. Does that answer that question, Cindy?
Yes, you did. And it reminded me of a director that I actually thought did one of the best jobs ever of getting a parent orientated to her center. And that was, she went through the parent handbook page by page and highlighted the areas that were real critical, to the health and safety of a child, especially an infant, because she didn't want it to surface later, and surface with the teacher, because it usually happens in the classroom that they go in and say, oh, by the way, I want my child sleeping on their belly. And so I think you're right about that 5-minute conversation. It might even be a 10. And making sure that, prior to, this is what we do and why we do it. Because again, I've seen this one a lot. And I've actually see people adhere to a parent's, expectation without realizing that they're the ones that are going to have to live with the fact that a child, something tragic may happen to a child, and the parent will never remember that they asked that. And then two, it's our job to share that parent information. And one of the things in an accredited school, you have to have a parent resource center. And so that's always a plus. But again, I would challenge anybody out there to ask some questions, because again, our goal is to help parents without getting them upset or angry or feeling less than a parent.
Yeah.
Because I think that's sometimes what they hear when you tell them what you are going to do and why. Sometimes they hear it as, are you saying I'm a bad parent because I let my kids sleep at home on their belly?
Yeah, it's a sensitive subject, and also a sensitive time for parents, where they're already getting so many different opinions from people on Instagram and TikTok and their neighbor and their FedEx person. Everybody tells you how to parent. And so giving them resources, authoritative resources, can be one of the best things that we can do for our parents.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing such great information, because I do think that, parent communication has and always will be one of the most critical things we do. And I've actually seen, unfortunately, where some situations go so badly that a parent has to be disenrolled. And sometimes, we have to think back, is there something we could have done different in the beginning? And again, sometimes there isn't. Some people are just, angry, and we can't allow that kind of behavior. But thank you for your tips. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody that joined today, and hope that you feel that our continued professional development program is worth your time. And certainly know that, Jill comes, to us and all of our presenters without charging us, which allows us to make this, free to you. And we certainly would love for you to look at the things that Jill and Justin have to offer as Bertelsen education if you need some follow-up professional development.
Thanks so much, Cindy.
Thank you so much. Just gonna go ahead and switch gears really quickly before we close out today's session. Just gonna go ahead and share a few things. We do, if you've joined us monthly, you know that we are having a conference next year. I'm so tongue-tied. We are going to be in Austin, Texas next April, the 25th through the 27th. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, it's going to be a really wonderful time filled with networking, leadership, leaders in the ECE community and childcare, just exchanging wonderful ideas. So please don't be left out of that conversation. Please go ahead and scan that QR code if you've got your phone readily available. Otherwise, I will drop that in the chat in a bit. Please come and join us next year. Our keynote speakers are going to be some phenomenal people who are leaders in the industry themselves: Regina Miller, Vernon Mason Jr., and Beth Cannon, who have also spoken on several of our webinars, both in past years and this year. So don't miss out to see them on the main stage. And if you are an NCCA member, please take advantage of early bird prices before January 1st. Surprisingly enough, the year has flown. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm truly shocked that it is November 1st. So you got 2 months. Don't get left out. Early bird gets the worm. Please take advantage of that. You can go ahead and scan that as well, and you can find the registration information on our website. And Cindy, I know that you've already spoken, but if you'd like to close us out, that would be wonderful. I can go ahead and give the floor to you to speak on advocacy and our call this afternoon.
All right. Well, and I don't know, I had a brain fade for a minute, but the Bertelsens will also be presenting at our conference. Some of the other members of their team. So just a note there. And I would like to mention that we're, without sounding like a broken record, which I know people think I do, speak often on the same subject, but we are certainly at a time and a place in Congress where, they are making, last minute decisions about where money is going to be budgeted in fiscal year 2024. And at this point in time, the House is not planning an increase at all for childcare, and the Senate is planning about $700 million, which may sound like a lot, but we just lost the ARPA funding, which was $24 billion. So some states have, about 20 states have done some, legislative action that is going to make up for the loss of federal funds, but that leaves about 30 states that are not doing anything. And that means we're going to be putting some childcare providers out of business. And we are also going to be putting about 3 million children out of care. So go to usa.gov and type in your zip code. It'll bring up your legislators and ask them to support the $16 billion child care emergency bill that is out there. We don't have enough voices on this, and we certainly don't have enough money to pay lobbyists. So we have to be our own lobbyists and use our own voices. And as constituents, we have more power with our own individual legislators than any advocacy agency. our organizations. So please, and Mariah will be sending out an email blast in the next few days that you can also, at the click of a button, do what I'm asking you to do, but also ask all your staff to do it and your parents. All right, that's it. I get preachy.
Thank you so much, Cindy. We hope to see you all at next month's webinar, and we hope to see you this afternoon's call. And we thank you again, Jill, so much for taking the time to share with us. This recording will be up on our website, and everyone who is in attendance here today is going to get a certificate probably by this afternoon with all the information from today's call. And then share it with your friends, share the recording and spread the knowledge. So thank you all again so much, and we will see you soon.